Today I'm with Will from Venture to Rome. Will, thanks for being with me.
Awesome to be here again, man. Good to see you again.
Yeah, man, we talk all the time anyways, but sometimes it's just fun to get together and like pick a topic and go nuts on it. So
Totally.
today we're talking about trucks versus Jeep. If you followed my channel, you know that I just recently, in the last few months, got a new Nissan Frontier, new to me Nissan Frontier. So I'm new to the truck world for overlanding. I had an Xterra and SUV before. Jeeps are even smaller, right? So Will is dealing with those restrictions on a Jeep. So today we just wanted to kind of compare and contrast, talk about kind of like pros, cons, and our final thoughts on each of those options, like something smaller and enclosed like a Jeep versus like an open bed pickup truck. All Things Overlanding is brought to you by some fantastic companies. You should definitely check out the description and click through their links to see all the awesome stuff they offer. Companies like Red Arc for all your overlanding power management needs. Last US Bag, tons of amazing quality overlanding bags. Rugged Bound Supply Company, rooftop tents, awnings, roof racks, and more. The More Expo 2022, get your tickets below. And Northology Overland, guided overlanding trips and a free overlanding magazine.
Some ways, like the grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
Some ways it's like, nope, the devil you know is what you want to stay with.
Yeah. Well, and I hate to say it, if I'm being 100% honest, like I have a lot of second thoughts about the whole truck format. Just as a whole,
Really?
like it has made me think about like it, and part of it is that there are so many options for a truck, right? Like
Yeah.
with a Jeep, you're restricted because that's just the shape of the vehicle, right? Like you have X square feet to, fill with different compartments.
Yeah.
And there may be different ways to do that.
You
but
get
like,
what you get, and that's it.
Right.
This is what you get for a Jeep. You get nothing more.
Yeah, exactly. But with a truck, it's like, so the one that I bought had a rack on it. And I had my rooftop tent and my awning on my Unistrut, my DIY Unistrut thing. And I literally just moved that whole thing over to the top. And that's how it's been since I got it. But I can't really use the truck bed because of all that crap that's up there. And I have a deck system in there, so that takes up room. And then I see all these guys like there's a guy on YouTube, K Adventures or something, that has a Frontier, and he has the Go Fast campers, like the fully enclosed thing that you can stand up through the back and get in.
Yep.
And that's really enticing me. But like
those are
like,
awesome, except that now you don't have a truck. Now you actually have an SUV. It's just
right. Yeah.
You don't have usable space in the back.
And Xterras are way cheaper than Frontiers. So I probably could have just bought a stock Xterra for about what I paid for the Frontier and not had to spend $8,000 on Go Fast campers. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Except that trucks are like, so I envy a truck. So like, pros to having a truck.
Yeah.
You generally have way more payload.
Yeah.
Like way more, like not even close. And you can tow something. Like my Jeep it stinks for both of those things. You cannot tow worth a crap. I think it's got like a 1,500 towing rating or something.
Oh, that's gonna be less than my Maverick, bro.
It's just ridiculous. And like it's got a payload of like 800 pounds. It's just like so sad. Whereas truck, like you've got way more options with the truck there.
True. Yeah, that's a good point. Other pros are, flexibility, right? So like, yes, it's expensive, but to your point, like you can haul a lot more. You could also tow a trailer or something if you wanted to. You could do, that big sort of like drop-in style camper.
Yep.
But you have the flexibility not to, right? The deck system gives me a lot of options for storage, like waterproof storage in the back, which is also secure because you can't open the drawers when the tailgate's up and locked.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of secure storage while still having the ability to throw things in and out of the back. I will say one of the things that I hadn't really thought about when I got the truck, and this happens way more than I would have expected, but like pulling up, like when we're out exploring and we find like a campsite that's nobody's at, if there's like some chopped firewood, sometimes we're like, ooh, we should grab that because then we'll have it when we finally find our camp.
Yes, totally. No matter what, even if you have a deck system, even if you have all that, I love overlanding when somebody has a truck for that reason. I'm always like, hey, can you take my firewood? Like, I'll put it like in the footwell of the Jeep, or sometimes I put it in the trasheroo. And so it's like, when I know there's a truck there, I'm like, can I just put my firewood in the back of your truck, please? And they're like, sure, there's plenty of room. Like, yes.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, and like when we were in Kentucky, like a month ago, that's exactly it. It was an 80 series Land Cruiser, a 200 series really nice, really new Land Cruiser. Right. And neither one of them, we went to the grocery store near the campground that we were at, and we bought like 4 bundles of firewood, and they're like, hey, can we just throw this in your truck? I'm like, yeah, we're just throwing it in the back. And like, it's a plastic deck system. So we're literally throwing it in there. It can't hurt anything.
Yeah.
And they were like, man, this is so nice.
Yeah.
So
I think some of the cons that you mentioned about having a truck, not that I'm advocating for a truck because I'm not, but some of the cons that the cons that you mentioned about having a truck are cons with any overlanding rig. Like you put a deck system in, you can put a goose gear system in a Jeep and you lose your back seats. I mean, there's those things. I do think trucks for the most part give you more flexibility in terms of what you can put in there, how you can arrange it, because you can do a big rack, a small rack, a short rack, a long rack. You can put drawers in, not drawers in. You can put a cab on it. You can put a smart cab on it. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do to it. In fact, one of my buddies has a taco, and he's got one of those, I call them like the old man tops that kind of like come up high, that kind of, you know what I mean? And I was like, dude, you got like an old man top on the back. And he was like, bro, I love this thing. There's so much room in there. So that stuff just doesn't exist for Jeeps at all. You have like one size, one top, you can put a rack on it. That's it.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing about that is, yes, it's an expense, but the difference is it's removable and you could sell it. Right. Yeah. So like, and the way those things hold their value now, like, yes, you might pay, let's say $8,000 if you bought a new Go Fast Campers thing. And yes, with the Frontier, it is fairly limited because, I mean, they made them from 2005 through 2021. So you got a lot of years, but you would have to find someone with a Frontier, presumably, right, to sell it to. But at least you can do it, right? Like with the Jeep, it's just the Jeep. The Jeep is the Jeep.
And look, Jeep has a massive secondary market. We can go into like the secondary market for Jeeps. Yeah. It's massive. But yeah, I mean, you know, I had to drill holes in my hardtop on my Jeep to put my rack on, which I'm not sorry that I did, but it means that like I'm keeping that rack. You know, like I can't, if I'm selling it, then what am I going to do with I've got big old holes in my roof. So yeah, there's definitely a cost to some of that stuff, to those kinds of things, like flexibility with storage. And I think truck wins all day long with those things, which is why they're so popular.
Yeah. Well, tell us some of the pros of the Jeep.
Yeah. Well,
from your standpoint.
So the Jeep, I mean, most of the pros with the Jeep are going to be because the vehicle was designed as an off-road vehicle first and only. Like it's not meant to do anything else but go off-road. And the JKUs, the 4 doors, are meant to go off-road with more people. That's it. So it's not meant to be a utility vehicle in any way. It's not super comfortable to drive if you're just like commuting, or if you're doing like highway miles. Because it's got a suspension, it's got a wheelbase that's designed to go off-road. So when you're overlanding, when you're off-road, those all become real advantages. So I have never thought twice about my approach angle, my breakover angle, my departure angle. I have even before I had front and back lockers, I've gone on extremely technical, difficult trails and never even broke a sweat. It just crawls up it, no problem. You know, it can get around, it can get in and out of those nooks and crannies. It's narrow. So on the trail, like I get less pinstripes, even though I've got plenty, but like all those things. So when it comes to like being off-road, that's where the Jeep really, really, really shines. And then the other thing I think where the Jeep really, really shines is there's never been a secondary market like there is for a Jeep. So you can get, it's like pick your poison for bumpers, for winches, for suspensions, for any little doodads inside. Like, oh, you want storage for this? Well, here's a box.
Stuff, right.
Yeah. I mean, just like, oh, there's 57 different kinds of grab handles you can buy for you. I mean, just all those things. So like rarely is there something that you want to do in your Jeep that you can't find many options for doing. Like I have a CB right now, I have not a CB anymore, it's GMRS, but my GMRS, like I want to mount it someplace. And I didn't really like the mounting solutions that were out there. Well, you know, it just took a little extra searching, and there's another 17 options for ways in which you can mount the microphone. So that's just an example. And I think those two things are probably the biggest advantages for Jeeps. And you know, they have a ton of shortcomings, but nothing has to do with their off-road performance.
Yeah. Well, I think that actually your point leads perfectly into like moving on to cons now. Like when I'm talking about my truck, and I have real world experience with this. When we went to Kentucky a month ago, I was with that 80 series and the 200 series, right? And this is a con that has been overcome by my modifications. But to your point, like you can buy a Jeep off the showroom floor. And if you really want to go nuts, you could put a couple inch lift on it and some bigger tire. Like you could go to 35s with no lift. Sometimes, you know, or 37s with a little 3-inch lift or something.
Now with the new JL Rubicon designs, if they have, fenders now that are like high clearance fenders, you can put bigger tires on it right off the line. Or now you can get it. They come with 35s. And if you buy a Ford Bronco, I know we're talking Jeeps versus trucks, but Ford Bronco is basically like the new Jeep knockoff.
Right.
And a good one, by the way. They're coming with 37s. You can get one off the line, crazy. The Raptor with 37s on it. So so you can drive off and be ready to go off road.
Yeah. But so like my truck, for example, exactly the opposite of what you're talking about. One, especially coming from my Xterra, it's like feet longer than the Xterra was, especially with the swing out bumper with the spare on the back.
Yeah.
It's a quad cab with a full size bed on the back too. So like from the back of my back tire to the back of the bumper is like 4 feet long. Like it's crazy. So like compared to these 80 series and these 200 series with these really short departure angles, like they were able to go up some stuff, but because I'm Titan swapped and on 35s and I have high clearance steel bumpers, like I had no problems.
Yeah.
But only because, like literally only because of all the modifications that have been done to that truck. Like if it was not modified, I would have destroyed it.
Yeah. It takes some work to get there for a truck. And depending on the truck that you have, like if you have a Taco, which is maybe like the next most I think they might even be more popular than Jeeps, but you got to do some stuff to get 35s, just to get 35s on there. Don't even talk about 37s and other things, but like you've got to do some serious modifications to shove those big tires in there. And so I do think that's a big con. In fact, I was just out on a trip. I'm editing the video now. It was a winter trip with my buddy Chris, and he took his Colorado, his Chevy Colorado, which is about the same size as a Taco. And I'm not sure how it compares to the Frontier. I think the Frontier might be a little bit bigger, but it's generally the same size.
They're pretty similar,
Ford Ranger kind of size. And we were off-roading, and I just completely took for granted that he was rolling on like not even 33s, and I'm rolling on 35s in my Jeep, and we're going down these roads, and I'm just like, hey, I'm having a great time. And he's like, I gotta pay a little bit closer attention because I'm in the truck. And it's, the clearance that you get, you've got to work for it in a truck, and you get it. You just get it in a Jeep.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the Frontier, again, has about the same amount of lift as my Xterra did, but because my Xterra wasn't super heavily modified, didn't have all the cut fenders and quarters and the high, bumpers and everything, I could only fit 33s on that. And I still, if you saw in that Land Between the Legs video, I was still pushing fenders out.
Yep.
Like flexing and pushing fenders out. And that thing isn't even Titan swap, which, widens it by 6-8 inches probably. So like on this truck, it's probably cut 2 to 3 inches up on the fenders and on the quarter panels just to make those tires fit. But the 35s are a game changer. Like I went places that I would never have even thought of going in the Xterra simply because of that. But it's a big con, right? Like, I mean, again, this truck is extremely modified, which is part of why I bought it, because I was like, it's already done. Mm-hmm. Just going to buy, bought, not built. That's my mantra on this truck. Like it's so much easier to just buy it. Except that the engine went. But aside from that, it's been great.
Aside from the whole like most important part of the vehicle.
The whole thing that actually makes you be able to drive it. It's not been a big deal at all. But like that is a big con that does take a lot of modification versus like I rode with Matt from Ozark Overland Adventures in his, like, I think stock, or maybe when I rode with him, he had like a 2 or 3 inch lift on it and 37s, but it essentially was stock with maybe a slightly bigger tires. And he's going over stuff that, to your point, like Tacomas that were heavily modified, we're getting like locking up their rails on it. Like their frame rails were getting caught on stuff that he just drove right over without even picking a line.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
that is a big con, is with a lot of these vehicles, even the Toyotas, the Fords, Chevys, Nissans, whatever, they have to work really hard just to even get to the point that the Jeeps start at, which is,
totally agree. But it's because they're made, and here's a con of the Jeep. They're made for more than just off-roading. So they serve a broader market than just overlanders and off-roaders. And so you can buy a Taco and never take it off-road, and it's going to be a really great car. Or the same thing with the Frontier, because it has, it's a more comfortable ride. It's a longer wheel bed. There's all these things that make it way more comfortable when you're not off-road. And that's a con to a Jeep when it's not off-road. And let's face it, most people are not driving their Jeep off-road most of the time. Most of the time. In fact, AEV, one of the biggest and most respected companies out there that do overlanding modifications for Jeeps and other rigs, like they if you read like why they design the lifts the way they design them, they're like, because no one spends all their time off-road. Like only the people you see on YouTube do that. And even most of them don't even do that. So you need it soft here. You need it stiff here. And that's because Jeeps are uncomfortable to drive in any other scenario, but being off-road for the most part. I mean, they're not terrible, but compared to a Taco, compared to a Frontier, compared to a Colorado, a Ranger, or your Maverick, I mean, it's like
that thing's going to be
night and
car-like.
Yeah.
But way less capable, right? Like it'll never touch what the base model Jeep would do.
You can get them there though. So like Frontiers and Tacos. So this is what people I think waffle on. You can drive a Jeep off the line and it's super, super capable. I think you can ford like 30 inches of water right off the line. Some ridiculous thing like that. You can do a little bit, put lift on it, and you can do even more. Well, you have to work harder with these trucks, and yet you can get them there and they can do a lot of the things that Jeeps can do. And you get all the comfort, and you get all the space, and you get the dual purpose use of it. So, I think that's definitely a comfort for a Jeep. Is this not great for much else?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So to kind of wrap up this episode, why don't we go you go first and just kind of give, I guess your pick, right? Like, what are your final thoughts? So now we've talked about pros and cons of these things. Obviously, we're going to be biased, right? Like, I'm not going to say, oh, I hate my Frontier and I'm getting rid of it. I'm never going to buy another truck. But, give us, based on what we've said here, why you're going to stay Jeep, or why maybe someday you might consider something else, and kind of your final thoughts.
Yeah. It's hard for me to consider going truck. If I did go truck, I might go Gladiator. I have toyed with the idea of getting a Gladiator. I mean, they do look pretty cool, but so do built up Tacos look pretty cool. I mean, Toyota has nailed that front end. It looks so nice. So I'm going to stay with my Jeep. And one of the reasons I'm going to stay with my Jeep is because I've got so much money invested in it. Like I need to get it's the value for my dollar out of my Jeep. But the other thing is I enjoy the constraint. I enjoy the constraint of having less space, of having to pack lighter, because those things actually make you more capable off-road. And our Jeep is one of the few Jeeps that probably spends equal time off-road versus on-road. Most of its on-road time is getting to off-road because it's not my daily driver. I don't use it to drop my kids off at school. If I did, I'd probably be wanting a different car right now. So my final thought is, Jeeps are great for people who understand that they're not great commuting. They're not great kid cars. They're really awesome off-road overlanding vehicles, but you have to compromise on space and payload.
Yep. Okay, perfect. That makes perfect sense. So kind of my thoughts are, and I've doubled down on trucks now. So with the Maverick, but exactly to your point, right? Like, because the Frontier is so modified and so long, like I kid you not, I fancy myself a pretty good driver. When I take that thing to the grocery store, because it's the only truck I have right now, I'm still waiting on my Maverick, right? So when I take that to the grocery store or whatever, I'll park it and I'll get out and be like, son of a, and I'll go back and get in it and back it up and forward and get it straight because it's so freaking long and so wide that I'll get in, and if I'm off by 6 inches, my wheel is on the line, so it is sort of a pain to drive, but I like the flexibility of the truck. I like the ability, we've just never had that. We've always had SUVs. So even when my wife does projects around the house, we need to get plywood or something, with my current truck with the deck system and gas cans strapped in the back and the rack that's, tapers in, I still can't use that thing. I can't really haul stuff in it. So that's why I got the Maverick. So I am pretty bullish on the truck idea for the flexibility. And I like the fact that on the Maverick, it has a full 5 seats and it's really roomy inside. So I'm pretty bullish on the truck. I can't wait to really start, because I've just been trying to fix the mechanical issues with it. I haven't even really wrapped my head around how to start modifying the truck for overlanding, but I really think that's going to be a fun challenge, right? It's going to be really exciting to figure out how can I on a budget, do a DIY solution to create something that's really unique and really useful for my type of overlanding that I can use for years to come. So I'm excited about the truck.
You've got some of the basics down, some of the critical basics already there. So what you're talking about now is some of it is just kind of comfort and icing on the cake and creative ways to solve,
how do I get my dual batteries, red arc, fridge permanently mounted, some of my stuff stored. Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Cool. All right. Well, cool. Well, that was Trucks versus Jeeps with Will. I think that was a fun conversation. So again, thanks, Will, for being with me.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.